right, guys, welcome to another edition of the Neighborhood Watch. I'm Matt.
And I'm Pat. Welcome for another special week with a special guest.
I'm Abe. How we doing, San Ramon?
I'm Brett. Hey, I got a question.
So,
I got a quick question for Pat. Okay, there it is. We are recording. Sorry, just want to make sure.
We're recording. It's on.
All right,
hey
we got
guys, so we're back into the interview phase. Last week we had a great interview with Brian Keith, the sculptor for the Eagle Project. So check that video out. If you did not, it was fantastic to learn. And we have a very special guest. Are you ready for Aparna Madareddy?
Oh, I love that.
Aparna Madareddy for mayor.
Yeah.
Love having you on. Welcome back. A great friend of the show.
Thank you. And it's wonderful to be back and see all your faces now cooped up indoors. You're not outside.
Yeah.
I'm outside.
We're outside sometimes.
I'm by my sign.
Okay.
Anyway.
So we're inviting Aparna on. She's got a lot of topics. We're gonna have her on again another time to address some of these topics. But tonight she really wants to focus on two topics. And let's begin with your first topic. What you want to start with?
We wanted to talk about, get into a little bit of the details about the issue of defunding the police. We've talked about it a little bit on the national level, what that means, right? We mentioned it a little bit, but what does that mean specifically here in our area in San Ramon? And I think we can get down in some of the details with Aparna on that. So, when you see that, what are your thoughts on that? What do you see?
Yes, and I thank you for inviting me to the show. And I know the Black Lives Movement and the protests have taken up center stage at this time. And the problems of the African American community are real. Their anger and frustration is also real. The justice system, the police, education policies, all need to be taken into consideration. We need to take a closer look. And politicians for decades have been talking, but nobody has really addressed the real issues at hand. I was talking to Pastor Samuel Houston. His interview is actually in my newsletter that went out today, and he's an African-American pastor from the Changing Lives Community Ministries. And we were talking about building stronger cross-racial alliances, how that can be critical for the movement for racial equity. And we talked about fairness and equity in policing and the justice system for minorities. So the one thing that came up, there are some policies that are already in place, like we have AB 392, we have SB 230. This is to reduce the use of force. This is already in effect. This is a law that is intended to encourage law enforcement officers to rely on alternative methods, such as less lethal force, de-escalation techniques. So that is already in place. Our police department responded to the 8 Can't Wait initiative 2 or 3 weeks back, and they addressed the issue of de-escalation and all the strangleholds and how they can reduce police violence, essentially during arrests. The Black Lives Matter movement, I respect the sentiments behind it. I'm a founding member of the San Ramon Valley Diversity Coalition Committee. It was formed by our current mayor, and the police, 1 or 2 police officers attend that meeting. We started this in January 2017. And one of the discussions that we started having was how to address conversations around race relations. And given that our police department was always a part of these conversations, we felt very comfortable that in our city, and I'm talking specifically to the city of San Ramon, that there were mechanisms already put in place very early on to address concerns that are now coming up. We had hours and hours of conversations with many community members. I know I did. I myself was a part of this, very involved. I strongly believed in something like this. And then for the last 2-3 years now, I have been suggesting and proposing to the City Council that we need a Citizens Police Advisory Committee in the city of San Ramon. We have 6 beats in the city that the police units go into, and we can have a few people from each beat, different age groups, different ethnicities, just participating in the conversation with the San Ramon Valley Diversity Coalition and the police department. So this I'm very proud to say that at the last Diversity Coalition meeting last week, the police chief announced that he and his department will be working with this coalition. So finally it has happened. Yes, it took a little time, but it is going in that direction. Now, keep this in mind that we have 69 sworn police officers.
Mhm.
We are a growing city. I'm working on the census. I'm the District 2 rep. So I know our population count is going to go up tremendously. How can 69 sworn officers take care of a population that is currently around 85,000 but will increase exponentially over the next few years? Keep in mind, we have some development projects in the pipeline. One of them is the City Walk project. It's called City Walk, but it is actually the 4,500 homes in the Bishop Branch area. That's going to bring in a lot of people. Then we have 634 homes in the Crow Canyon specific plan area that's being proposed. Another addition to our population. If we do not think proactively, if we do not support our police department right now, they will be stretched thin. There is no way they can take care of the entire city with a minimum budget and not be able to address issues like burglary. That there was an increase in burglaries and car break-ins last year, and many residents started complaining about that. Property crimes will increase, shoplifting, that will go up. So as of now, we have managed to keep the numbers down in our city, crime-related numbers, because of the police-resident ratio. Excuse me. If that ratio stays stagnant and our population continues to grow, imagine how the crime rate is going to look like moving forward. Many people talk about, adding more money to the police department means you're militarizing the police. Well, I'm going to break it up a little bit so residents have a better understanding. Now, everything is not just for the city. Our city partners, as regional partners, they are a part of the SWAT team. So they do partner with other cities like Martinez, Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, and the BART police. Then they are also a part of the regional major accident investigation teams. That again, they're partnering with Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, Martinez police departments. Now that's extra training, that's extra gear that they have to wear. This is hostage negotiations, sniper incidents. We know these things are real and these threats are real. Then you have the unmanned aerial system, that is the UAS, and 6 of our police officers are trained and certified by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Association. So there's a lot of these things that our city, our police department is already doing. And for us to say we are going to defund or divest funds, yes, there is a need. I agree there is a need for change in some policies and some training, providing them cultural backgrounds of people that are residing in San Ramon. But the police department is already doing that in our city. They are also a part of the Tri-Valley Mental Health Coalition meetings that I have been a part of. I've attended pretty much all meetings. We have people from the school district, we have people from the police department, the county mental health commission participating and informing us of the various things that are being done to work with the police department. So if there is a 5150 where this is a case of where the it can be life-threatening to the individual, the police department has a therapist accompanying them. So, but we can't just have the therapist going out on their own. It is a dangerous situation and sometimes can turn deadly. So understanding the bigger picture of why the police department is spending where it is spending is important for residents to understand. public safety is, law enforcement is an arm of public safety. It is about protecting residents, and residents expect a certain level of protection from our police department. If they don't get it, then they are going to complain that we are feeling unsafe in our neighborhoods, which was happening last year. And I was at a couple of city council meetings where residents did come and say there were break-ins. So we need to be understanding of all the things that are put in place. There is definitely room for improvement, and that's what the police chief and the police department are open to doing by working with us, the Diversity Valley Coalition Committee. So I hope I explained that in a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of good points there, and a couple of things just for commentary and question. I mean, we've always supported the police and local law enforcement and first responders here as part of the show. It's just been something we've always felt they're part of the community. And if others feel like they are at odds or don't get that vibe, respect from the San Ramon police or any first responders or even neighboring cities, I think the discussion has to be had versus just defund. So I was listening to some podcasts this week about this very matter, and there was some high-level experts on there and some retired Navy SEALs and people that are really involved in training. And some of the points they brought up were that police officers, once they get hired and put on the beat, put on the force, their training, they get less than 20% of training time per week, per month. And that a lot of this defunding could be rephrased as refunding. And it hits on some of your points, is training them in different aspects of different demographics in the community, different situational de-escalation tactics. So we talk about these, you see on the news is these forceful chokeholds and things, which, hey, sometimes that might be necessary. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Is the retraining of de-escalation? And you did say something about bringing that social worker with them, or somebody who's more trained in negotiation than maybe a regular beat cop, and somebody that also knows to step in when somebody's getting out of hand and can take that person aside and then assess the situation from a different level.
And that's exactly what is outlined in the 8 Can't Wait initiative response that the police department provided a few weeks back. So that is exactly what you mentioned. Absolutely. So that's the whole picture about this. So conversation of defunding and removing the funds, that is doing a disservice to the residents of our city, essentially, is what I would say.
Right. Absolutely.
Aparna, what would you say the proponents of this defunding the police, where would they rather see this money go?
Into the social programs. So many of them, and again, there are cities, there is a need where that can happen if the budget so allows. You have to evaluate each city individually. You cannot all put them in the same basket and say, okay, it's the same for everyone. Right. So if there is a need, for housing, mental health services, education, medicine, those are areas they are looking at to divest some of the funds. And so bringing about some kind of balance so that if they are feeling comfortable in an environment, the advocacy is that they will not even commit crimes. They are already in those environments where they're feeling safe and protected. And there is a place for that. There are cities that would need that, but that has to be evaluated individually and very methodically. You can't just go all out and say, okay, that's it, I'm taking it out and taking the money out. You have to first see what the implications will be. I always like to look at any decision that I make long-term, 3 to 5 years, and then look at 10 to 15 years. Where will it put you? Realistically, you have to be realistic. If a population is showing an increase in a city, which areas, which demographics is moving in? What are we seeing? Where is the trend? is there room for flexibility when it comes to hiring police officers? And that's where you can see a shift. If you're seeing a diverse demographic, then you look at the police department and say, okay, maybe the hirings can shift into hiring more diverse police officers. That's something you can look at, because then there is some trust, community trust building that happens. But again, that is a very unique to each city. You have to look at it that way. And for our city, that's one thing that I have been looking at, and I have been seeing that a lot of mechanisms have already been put in place. People are not aware of it. I have been a part of this, so I am aware of this, and which is why I can speak very confidently that we are in the right place. But there is definitely a little room for training, practice, understanding the cultures that now reside in our city. That I will definitely say, which is why I was constantly advocating for the Citizens Police Advisory Committee. That would be an asset to the police department.
And so, Aparna, you mentioned, we're going to have more residents here in the near future.
Yes.
When you look at, if we have 69 sworn officers, is that a percentage, or do we need to allocate more funds for it? Because to me, it would make sense if we have more people, we need more police officers. But how does that work?
If overall, we are a very safe city. So again, you have to look at the police resident ratio. Overall, we have a very low ratio of police officers to per 1,000 residents. If you compare it to other cities which have lower populations, they have more police officers. So that way, that was my comparison point when I was doing a research. That I believe it's 0.87 per 1,000 for our city, close to that. So you have to evaluate the number of residents that will be moving in. For example, the City Walk project they are estimating 2 people per household. So there are 4,500 homes, 9,000 people. I don't believe it's going to be 2 per household. This is a multi-generational era we are living in, where you have grandparents and kids all living in the same household. So it may be more. Now, would the policing need increase just as the ratio is increasing? Maybe not, because the population here is more understanding of what our city is, follows rules, does everything. So again, evaluating the need as per the population growth. As of now, what I'm seeing in San Ramon is a diverse population group residing. So the one thing that the police department would have to look at is hiring officers that would be diverse. How many they hire, that would depend. They were supposed to hire 2, but because the cost was a bit too much and they felt this was something they could hold off on, they are now going to look at it in January of 2021. I believe the hiring would have cost upwards of $350,000 with the police salary and the police patrol car and everything factored in. It would have been a cost on our budget, and our budget has really been impacted because of COVID-19 revenue losses. Sure. So again, people have to see where the need is. They have to provide feedback to the police department. And until that happens, the police will do the best that it can do. There are some things they have done, and there are some things they can do. Vet the police officers, see the hiring process, what is the policies in their hiring. If a police officer has a record, that should be made public. Maybe I don't know how the police union, the police officers union association is going to look at these, but many are now opening up to that conversation that yes, we want to work with residents. We want to make sure that we are building community trust. So everything is moving in a right direction, but again, leadership is needed to bring this whole thing together. Somebody who understands, somebody who's already from a diverse background. I'm plenty diverse, and I've worked with diversity for a while. So it is very easy for me to address these and provide feedback on what works, what doesn't work with certain cultural groups. It'll be different from each one. So being mindful of that.
So, and that's all great information. I think Brett, you might have a question. I just wanted to comment real quickly. People need not forget that the San Ramon Police and the city of San Ramon has a couple of things that they could get involved in for outreach to understand what the police department is doing. That's the Citizens Police Academy, which goes on. Obviously it's not going on now because of COVID, but that's something. And then ride-alongs. I think you can reach out, definitely in San Ramon and most cities, to your local police department and go on a ride-along with an officer and, really learn what they see day to day. And there's different programs beyond that. So I'd like to see the city do more of that kind of outreach as well. And I'll leave it at that because I know we're kind of going over on time. But Brett, did you have a question or comment?
I wanted to ask her for sure about the 4,500 housing project that's coming up, because I know there's a deadline to it. I have more of an opinion than a question on the police defunding, and that is, a lot of places are talking about it. Why not? Let's watch what happens and learn from other places that are doing it. I really don't think San Ramon has any issues that I've ever heard of. I don't think we're even close, and I know some places do. So why not? Let's see how this works out and what that all entails. I just think it's too early to be talking about that in San Ramon. It's not broken. At any rate, like I said, we can beat that dead horse. But I do want to ask you about the housing project and the bridge. I know there's a deadline coming up. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, thank you. And the deadline is July 2nd at 5 p.m. So all public comments have to be received by then. I did ask the Planning Commission for an extension because we are all sheltered in place and busy with a lot of things. And there was no law that would have prevented them from extending it to beyond the 45-day period. It could have been 60 days, it could have been 75 days. It's a very complicated, complex document with technical terms. You have to really understand what you are reading. And before you make a comment, you have to be educating yourself and then make an educated and informed comment. Well, with all the things going on, for me personally, it was very hard. And I read a lot, and I can read a lot of pages in a short amount of time. I could not do it with all the things that I was involved in. So I had asked for an extension, but we did not get it. So now the deadline is July 2nd at 5 p.m. For this huge plan, the City Walk Master Plan, which is Bishop Ranch 1, 3, and 2600 Camino Ramon. So this is 135 acres, 4,500 multifamily residential units, 169 room hotel. And then there will be additional 170,000 plus 170,000, a little over that, square feet of retail, new office space, parking structures. Given the magnitude of this project, and this is the guideline for the next 25 years, 500 to 700 units being built every 2-3 years, that's a lot of units that are coming up. So giving the residents a little bit of time to send in their comments of how they feel about the project, what I felt was important. Now, to call it a city walk project, is our city really built for walking? I mean, if this was a true city walk project, the overpass, the Iron Horse Trail overpass, should have been built first. That's my bottom line. I have a land use planning background. My master's was in urban and rural geography, so I understand land use like nobody's business, and I can safely say some projects, the implications long term in our city or any city, I can look at it and take and understand. So for me, it was important that it would have been a very prudent thing to do to extend the comment period on this draft environmental impact report. Now, what happens now? You may hear some council members say, "Oh, but you can still provide public comment." So let me explain this whole thing. So when you provide this public comment up to July 2nd, this is the draft environmental impact report. So the staff will prepare responses based on what you are asking. Then a final environmental impact report is also going to be prepared. But what happens is, after the environmental impact report is certified for project approval, There is a bill that is SB 330 that has now expedited housing development. That short clock starts right away. So that means you only get 5 public hearings, and one of them is reserved for city council. So you have this huge project and you have this short timeline to get your comments in, to raise your concerns, and you can't really raise your concerns. So let me let me tell you what environmental impact things that you can look at. So CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, it is only a disclosure process, so it doesn't tell whether the project will be approved or not. But what is an environmental impact? What are you looking at? So you're going to be looking at air quality, you're going to look at traffic, noise, hazards, utilities and public services, cultural resources, so EBMUD, central sand for sewage, those are kind of things. So those things, and what you cannot look at when you're talking about environmental impact, and this is very bothersome, I know, for many residents, quality of life. You cannot, that is not going to happen, even though imagine this is going to impact the quality of community anxiety. That will not be a part of this. Property values or any economic impact, those you cannot, even though these are real policy issues, that is not to be included in this. So when you're posing your questions and comments, keep in mind, what are you looking at? Traffic impact, definitely. How is this project accurately describing the traffic mitigation? What mitigation measures will be put in place for the traffic that's coming up? My major concern, as I was looking through the document, water. We are always in drought seasons every so often. Are you going to be able to provide water to all the 4,500 units and to the city of San Ramon? EBMUD supplies water to a lot of this area, and the other side, Doherty Valley, has the Dublin San Ramon Services District. Now, that is a huge concern as it is in the face of what we are seeing with this project. Then you have sewage. That's central sand. Yes, they will say mitigation and they will address that. But realistically, if you look at infrastructure, even underground, that has to be addressed. That is, we have a lot of aging infrastructure underground, and we never think about it. We only think about what is at the surface, which is also not in a very healthy state right now. But given our infrastructure maintenance fund, its starting fund is at 1.2 million, and by the end of the next fiscal year, we will be at 600,000. So how are we going to address that? And SB 330,
a lot of questions, definitely a lot of questions around all this.
Exactly. So these are things I was trying to find out and address, but it's too rushed. 2 days. It's just 2 days away from now. So we really can't. And sure, the city can say we certify the EIR document and then can reject or, but you know, you've just made a very significant movement forward with this. So I encourage through your show, your viewers, please, if you have concerns, if you have questions, just send in your comments and questions to the planning staff, and
what is, do you know is there a general email they can send questions into?
Yes, and I can send it to you. It's actually on the city's website. If they go,
I thought that.
It's right there. So they can look at it and just addressing. I mean, we are also in an earthquake zone. Can you imagine if something happens and what happens to these things? So and another pandemic. We already are stuck in place. So
lots of things, right? We got to think about all this stuff.
So
and
there are so many things, and I hate to do this because it's very interesting, but we are out of time.
We're up on time on our.
And we appreciate you coming on, and it's very informative.
So two things.
You, Aparna.
City Walk.
Don't ever call me
July
for the budget.
2nd,
It'll go overtime.
City Walk.
We'll plan for that.
And defunding police, 2 hot topics. We're going to keep talking about this. You're welcome to be on the show again. You're definitely a friend of the show. And if people want to find out, go ahead, Brett, before we get cut off.
So we got your newsletter out today as well. So thanks once again. Newsletters, tons of great information, not just about San Ramon, but the surrounding area. So it's actually great. I mean, it's really good. So thanks for doing
Have a very happy and safe 4th, Aparna. Thank you for coming on.
As you guys can't see, she's running for mayor. So good luck. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.